who are like, what is this solidarity economy thing? Like, I know that I'm getting effed over, I know that I'm not fully, have the courage to stand up, to Spotify, to the huge corporate media gatekeeper world, but I don't have the tools. I don't know how to talk about the economy. I don't understand the economy. So I encountered Caroline's work because she was actually calling herself a solidarity economy artist and was helping me understand, through her art. There's a particularly an ecosystem artwork that really helped me understand what I was stepping into. Um, and so, yeah, Caroline, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself really quickly before we get into this.
I'll just say, yeah, and I got connected to other artists because of Nati. Like, I don't know if you all know, but Nati coordinates and organizes a lot of artists in Culture Berry. So it was the first time that I got to meet other artists who are like wearing that artist hat while they're doing organizing around economic justice. So yeah, I know we don't have that much time. It feels so great. I'm like, we're here with you all to build together and learn how we can center arts and culture. You already know most of this.
Oh,
So here we are. We can talk, and you see the slides right there. But
I think the context was important, and also sharing, I think, the disconnect that I've encountered from my old world and now this world. And so grant makers in the arts, not your typical solidarity economy audience. They're the National Association of Public and Private Arts Funders. Laura Zabel from Springboard in the Arts, they're a New Economy Coalition member. They're an arts advocacy organization in Minneapolis. They're piloting, for example, a guaranteed basic income pilot for artists right now in Minneapolis. Forwarded us this opportunity to, grant makers in the arts wanted to learn about new and alternative economies in the arts. And there's this whole reckoning going on in the arts advocacy world around racial justice and what it means to be anti-racist and how we look at the economy. And, that's been a fascinating window into that world. And so Caroline and I applied for this RFP and produced this report that came out last month called Solidarity Economy, Solidarity Not Charity, Arts and Culture Grant Making in the Arts. And it was our way to organize people we wanted to talk to who we saw were doing this work, whether it was artist organizers, whether it was solidarity economy academics like Emily, like Francisco, like Laura Zabel on the ground, to grant makers that are really pushing the philanthropy field around this stuff. And so we talked to over 80 folks over the course of 5 months. And do we want to share the screen or do we not have that ability to do that?
Yeah, I tested it earlier, but I can't do it right now. So I don't know if anyone else can, but you have the link right there, and I see many of you in here.
Oh, okay, great.
Do it, that'd be great. Or you can hop down, follow along, up to you.
Cool. I feel bad that we can't all look at it at the same time, but I guess that's okay.
I think there is one, on my screen at least, there's a little plus sign in the bottom left and it says take presenter.
Okay, I just
go to do it.
I take presenter and then I share my screen and then I allow. Or Caroline, do you want to take it?
Yeah, let me try.
Bottom left.
Presenter. Okay. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hendrix.
Hi, Hendrix.
Hey. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, yes, it looks like it's starting to work.
Okay, great. So this was the report. We worked with a worker co-op design crew called Surplus Plus. And we can walk through quickly. We're arriving. We'll give you some summaries of the report. We'll have some questions and discussion. So I'm on the lands of the Nipmuc peoples. Caroline, I don't know if you want to read.
Yeah, I'm on the Podunk, Tungsis, Wangunk, and Sickawag peoples.
Cool. For those of you in Western Mass in particular, I know there are a few of you. One of our interviewees started a land back relationship with the Nipmuc, and there's a the Okatu Cultural Center near where I live. So I always like to encourage people to support that initiative. And yeah, this is all part of the report. We really want to acknowledge folks that we're standing on their shoulders, really, who really centered solidarity and cooperative economics, people that inspire us. Ella Baker, Grace Lee Boggs, Lorraine Hansberry, Maishiro, etc. So we just acknowledge these greats, and we really continue on this work. So we hope to get a sense of the report, to pique your curiosity. I mean, a lot of you know some of these things already, so it might be redundant, but just to be a little bit more formal about it, and to brainstorm together. So grant makers in the arts wanted a report to identify principal players in the solidarity economy, patterns in the work, opportunities for coordination, principles to promote, barriers to adoption. It ended up becoming a monster of a report. It's 100 pages. So take your time to get through it. But the aims of the report were to provide a brief mapping and an overview and provide some key recommendations about the ways that our nation's arts grant-making community can strengthen the connections between arts, culture, and economic and racial justice through the framework of solidarity economy. I think one giant win here was that the RFP was like, tell us about new and alternative economies. And Caroline and I had a lot of conversations, just as a communications person, just all the different brands of this work. And, as Francisco likes to say, they're cousins. There's some very important beefs and differences between them, but ultimately we want to start getting people who are new to this world to start going into the same direction without also diluting or watering down what we're up against, for fear of co-optation. So it's this very interesting line, but we were able to really focus on solidarity economy and educate grant makers in the arts about solidarity economy and why it was important to us to really set that line. And I really thank USSEN and everything I've learned from you all for influencing that in my learning journey. You can continue on. I want to thank David and Emily. Emily peer-reviewed the report, which was incredible. Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nemhard was a huge resource, really gave us the confidence of that this is needed, and so many others. You can continue on. So these were some of the folks that we spoke to. We had a little gathering of everyone, which was really exciting. It was funders, it was artists that are organizing unions against Spotify, it was Emily, it was it was all these interesting folks doing media reparations projects, folks doing exciting funder organizing stuff. So it was a really dynamic gathering in early March, and we're hoping to do one again, and hopefully to do more of a public launch to include artists, because we're getting so much correspondence from artist organizers. For example, the Museum of Modern Art is organizing a Divest campaign in New York City, and they're in the middle of a 10-week teach-in that's happening, for example. So they've been bringing in the report, and I heard in one of their calls, we can't just go in the lobby and throw smoke bombs, which is what they did last time when they were protesting their board. We need to look to alternatives. They were asking questions around how do we democratize the museum. So there's a lot of exciting things going on. So we hope to present this more publicly. Strike MoMA is organizing, correct. Next. Some of the virtual things. So why culture and economic justice? I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but here we go. No one knows what arts and culture will look like after the pandemic. 63% of creatives have become fully unemployed. A third of museums say they're likely to close forever. Black and Indigenous people have a COVID-19 death rate of double or more than the death rate of white people in the US. And yet foundation giving in 2020 documented that only 5% of pandemic response dollars were intended for communities of color. You can imagine that our audience is grant makers, and we're really putting this in their face to confront this. Around half of 1% of annual foundation giving directly supports women and girls of color, and less than half of 1% goes to Native Americans. So really at the core of this report is what would the cultural economy be like if it loved Black and Indigenous people? And that was kind of the core question we went into the report with. And as we talked with folks and interviewed folks, we really led with that. And so I'll go through this quickly, but normally with the group, we'll go through slowly, kind of a pop quiz, you know. So like, what do these organizations and movements have in common? You know, the oldest Native cooperative, the first democratically managed investment fund, the oldest non-extractive venture capital firm, an org that gives 35,000 freelancers pensions, Black Lives Matter. And so, you know, sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. But we're really trying to hammer home that artists and culture bearers have really been at the forefront of building maybe not formal solidarity economies in the sense of like these formal organizations, but of being creative to survive. And I think, you know, really leading with the values of solidarity economy. Like artists are the original gig workers. And so this pop quiz is an effort to illustrate that, you know. So Koala Arts and Crafts, I get to spend some time near Cherokee land, and it's an incredible artisan cooperative that formed in the 1960s. They're the oldest Native co-op. Boston Ujima Project, First Democratic Investment Fund. These folks were all interviewees. The Working World, oldest non-extractive venture capitalist fund. Smart.coop, which now the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops is working with Smart.coop to launch a freelancers cooperative in the U.S. called Gilded. And then Patrice Colors. So we're trying to make these connections. Artists have been at the forefront of leading these movements. And really, there has never been any revolutionary movement without revolutionary artists. And I feel like we're at the beginning of that beginning of that beginning to continue that legacy. And so, you know, we share this with grant makers that this work is happening all around the country, and that artists and culture bearers have been most harmed by our current systems are practicing self-determination and community wealth, and they need to be supported more and intentionally. Continue. And so we talk about what are the connections between mutual aid networks and housing and worker co-ops and participatory budgeting and public banks. And really it's around who owns it and who controls it, community ownership and democratic governance for political, cultural, and economic power, which we got from Nomaka Agbo, who is also an interviewee for the report. So yeah, this is not new to you all, but you know, just wanted to present just more formally kind of the motivations and how we present this to a different audience. And so Caroline, I don't know if you want to take it away.
Yeah, I'll say a little. Oh, I hear it. Could you mute, Nancy? So I'm going to do this super quickly because you can look on the website, and it would be great now that we're all in this time space together to actually talk and figure out what we can build and how you want to bring in arts and culture. You're already doing that because we learn so much from you. So you have this slideshow. Essentially, what we said is that arts and culture grant makers are poised to strengthen and grow the solidarity economy, that philanthropy already builds and supports infrastructure and institutions, but the main barrier for many of these solidarity economy entities is deliberate incubation and startup capital over many years. That now funders are learning about cooperative business structures. So artists and culture bearers are leading the work. They need to support what's happening. And on the website, you can see many of these things. There's a whole area where funders can add what they're already doing. And we're trying to essentially organize funders to put peer pressure on one another to say, actually, you can transition from a white led foundation that's in the family to community governance. So we give them examples like the Leeway Foundation and show them, for example, what you all have done, like actually looking at your solidarity economy reports. I'm thinking of Highlander, David, and just excerpting that. So putting in that quotation, looking at what's happening with the Massachusetts USSEN work, and hopefully getting people on board. And yeah, you can go through this on your own if you're interested. This is a top level summary from the report. We worked in a Google Doc with over 80 people who we interviewed. Emily helped a lot. And then we made this website that's just Art.coop, like Nati just put in the chat. And you can see, if you want to add organizations to it, we get notifications when people download, and now we have over 600 people that have downloaded in the past few weeks. Justice Funders also organizes philanthropists, and now it's required reading. So that means this term is going to circulate outside of arts and culture philanthropy as well. And yeah, you can see all the things that people said, including making investments that are mission aligned with the solidarity economy. All of this is in the website. And I think because I'm an artist and Nati's a cultural organizer, communications person, we think a lot about how no one's going to read a report. So that's why we made a website and a video, because that's how we learn. And we're not report people. So we're like, let's organize. And we don't have the same like fear or, I don't know, stakes that other nonprofits or funders would have. So anyway, you can watch this video on the website. This is the point where we get to hear from you. We've learned a lot from you, and we'd love to support and align with your existing work. There's all this energy now, so we want to move it in the right direction as we get invitations. Yeah, I want to add anything, Nati, to open it up?
No, just a great appreciation for everyone here, and we're just getting a lot of correspondence and trying to figure out what the next path is. David, Paris, and some folks are figuring out how to move a core group from gestation to a working group. We struggle because we have our full-time jobs and this isn't prioritized yet still even. And so, yeah, still really trying to figure out what happens now and how to bring more people into the report and into this work. So
one thing that might be important to share before we open it up is that we are trying to raise some money to connect hyper-local cultural organizers and artists to learn about the solidarity economy. And we have some money to do just 6 workshops in September and October. So if that overlaps with anything you're doing, it's our dream to get kind of a train the trainer model for artists all over, Ujima, meeting with E.B. Prack, meeting with Mike, meeting with any of you. So we only have money for 6 workshops right now, but maybe we could align around that.
I'll jump on Stack if the discussion is open. Twinkle fingers, all of that good stuff. Loving the spin here. I have not read the full report. It is next up on my Kindle, alongside a few other hot reads. But I'm excited to see the things that are happening. I definitely would be interested in hearing how others are using their report locally. Just hearing that like Justice Funders is using its required reading has already given me some emails that I need to send to Field Foundation, Crossroads. Crossroads probably already is using it, but I certainly want to make sure that it circulates. I have circulated the website to Front Porch Art Centers locally, which does some organizing on the west side of Chicago. Okay, boom, Field Foundation was an interviewee. So yeah, I'm sure Tempest is my point of contact for my projects at COLA. So yeah, love to hear how others are using the report to kind of see the local ecosystem, and looking forward to what else we can do with this this data and this research. Check.
Hi, I'm new to this group, and I just wanted to briefly say thank you so much, Nati, Caroline, everybody, for your work. The things that immediately jumped to my mind in terms of having access to this level of information and organizing is that I've been sort of a fly on the wall with the California Arts Advocates for the last 9 months, trying to generate a larger movement to support artists who were so hard hit by the pandemic. And in that process, begin building a narrative around the importance of artists, central importance of artists in our economic cultures and cultural economies, both. That it is not just that they are essential. One of the things that is not present yet, I think, in the California Arts Advocates narrative is this sort of sectoring off, that it's referred to as sector rather than looking at our lives as completely interconnected, and the lack of focus on culture bearers as the center of our lives is part of the disease that is causing this breakdown of society. So hopefully I will be able to share it down the line with Julie Baker, the director there, and then also I'm organizing locally in Humboldt County to put forth the county tax to support the arts, and all of this sort of narrative and access to these words is going to be very helpful. I will share it with my colleagues in that work, and perhaps we can convince some of our board of supervisors, at least a few, that these are important ideas. So thank you.
Thank you. So we have a little less than 10 minutes. Mike, is that right? Is there anything else? I'd like to hear from others who, I don't see any names in the chat, but I think a lot of people have something to say. So you can either wave your hand, I guess, or put your name in the chat. Hendrix. Sounds back.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Nadia and Caroline. Great to see you, and good to meet you, Caroline. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, like Mike, I'm looking forward to digging into this more. I scanned it, but there's so much in here. One thing that I'm often thinking about with solidarity economy is the layers of the movement, because there's, my background is in economics and finance, so the easy place for me to go is in terms of like infrastructure building, like what capitalist art infrastructure are we replacing with solidarity economy art infrastructure. But then there's also, clearly the cultural work, and it just the in terms of the norms of how we relate to each other. That changes when we have different economies. There's like a culture of an economy, and then there's also the even more internal work of how we relate to ourselves. So I'm curious about if this, because I think like a key for me, like a key part of my personal theory of liberation is that we all do need to be creative. I think creativity is one of the highest forces that I can think of, that I've experienced. So I'm curious about if you guys have thought about, or maybe it's in the report already, just the importance of everybody becoming an artist, finding their artistic, finding their inner artist. And because I certainly, in this framework, it's like become clear, that should be, that's a key part of liberation, a key part of solidarity economy.
Caroline, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, I love that. And I think this from to is really helpful in popular education. And we made at Art.coop /action this thing about the transformation underway, which is based on a lot of different things, like the Guild of Future Architects, David Bollier's work, a lot, and then we added a lot. So I totally agree. And I think the drawings in the report and looking at that circle of the solidarity economy and saying, here's the way we can have different real estate with E.B. Prec, here's the way we can circulate our resources differently, like Mike is definitely on that, and adding yourself to this. But this summary, I think, has helped a lot of people. And we actually heard that there's a collective, I think they're an Argentinian collective that translated this, right, Nati? So that's on this website now. You can also download it in Spanish right here, if you're interested in that, like transformation underway. So that's been helpful, I think, for people to see a summary. And yeah, I know with David, we were also talking about that for popular ed for artists. Like, what are we replacing? Totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, inspire something that I would talk about a lot in the interviewees that I feel like is missing and really difficult to find space and capacity and resourcing for is in the early 90s, late 80s with the ACT UP movement around AIDS. There was a Red Hot and Riot organization, and I saw an interview with them as we were starting this process. And they were talking about how they solely existed to be the propaganda arm for ACT UP. And like they were singularly focused on doing albums, doing artwork, commissioning artists, doing education. And that just like really excited me of like what I think we could be working on in conjunction with other elements around education and policy and capital, you know, organizing. But like, where's our propaganda arm? You know, and something that inspired that was that Francisco and I did a talk last year where we did like 2 hours around solidarity economy, and it was with meme makers and propagandists and digital propagandists who were like in their early 20s, you know, who were all on Instagram. So they learned about solidarity economy, and then for 2 or 3 hours, they just like created together and like talked about the importance and history of propaganda. And it was really cool because then you could search this hashtag afterwards and you saw kind of how they reacted to the information. It was just such a small micro example of what we could have so much more of, you know, and yeah, I would always give the example of my son doesn't really talk yet, but he loves to sing already, and he loves to play xylophone, and he loves to bang on the drum, and like trying to retell that story of all of our, you know, creative potential and power and what's going to be needed to actually transform this world. So yeah, lots of ideas. I'm just struggling with like personally like finding space within my work day to focus on this and like that's what I have questions around of like and not to mention just me but like all the people that we spoke to, you know, Diara Wright, who's a facilitator of solidarity economy, Sierra and Boston Utima, like all this energy of folks that like how are we channeling this into actual formal strategy and roles and doing things. I don't think we have that yet.
Thank
I
you so
see
much.
that Juji
Yeah,
has her hand up, and Marcus asked for Stack next. Great.
oh,
So
thank you. I tried that setting that Mickey you put in the chat that if you want to raise your hand, you click on your name at the left, but I'm not able to see the raised hand, and Mickey, you apparently are. And I'm going to give my time to Marcus because we are pressing on time. Marcus, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say really quickly that this is really amazing. So I'm in North Carolina, and in the past few weeks, a new report came out that I got to work on, kind of geared toward funders in a similar way, trying to get them to hop on this, you know, justice funding train, and not necessarily supporting the arts, but supporting grassroots BIPOC-led food system development work here in North Carolina. And it came out. Like they really took a lot of our recommendations. It came out a lot more radical than I was expecting it to be. I was just expecting something pretty watered down. But now the big question is like, how do we actually get these funders that want to play in this space of you know, supposed equity and all this big work? How do we get them to actually like engage with something this kind of radical for them? And so just seeing like, you know, this report that you all have worked on and like the life after report, so it doesn't just live as a PDF, is really interesting. And I think something that some lessons that I would love to bring down here just to, you know, make sure that this is engaged with and translated in some ways and works with the momentum that's been built. So, you know, thanks for sharing all of this.
There are a couple more questions in the chat. I want to be mindful of time. I know, Carolyn, you have to hop off real soon. I'm wondering if we can connect in the chat or by email. I'll give everyone one more opportunity to speak up before we move on.
Yeah, like Caroline said about, oh, did you mean us or the group?
Anyone, Natty, go.
Oh, just I'm seeing David's question and I'm like, yeah, I wish I had all the answers of like with the, you know, where exactly we want to go next. One, we can share more with you around this pilot school. I think maybe you could possibly be a presenter. And that's kind of, I see a way to plug in. And then what Marcus just shared really resonated because during the process we were challenged a lot by folks that we interviewed who also kind of kicked that to us of like, so what, so a little report, you know, what y'all gonna do with it basically. And that has been really like top of mind. And so thinking about how to make accessible programming that also isn't extracted, that isn't wasting people's time, that, you know, it's just like a lot of different things that we're balancing on top of the full-time jobs that we have. So, you know, hopefully some kind of public launch that is really led by artists is something that I really want to do. A clubhouse chat because, you know, the kids and the creative, you know, tech world is on Clubhouse, so we're talking about doing a little Clubhouse chat, which is this app for folks that don't know, where you have like audio conversations in real time. A lot of the tech world and artistic entrepreneurial world is on it, and would love to just be more in communication with you. And I spend time in North Carolina, so maybe we can just connect. Oh yeah, and we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. We're just trying to pull out all the examples. Again, doing it voluntarily after hours is a struggle, but you know, if you come across examples that you want us to uplift, like please send that our way. We're almost close to 1,000 followers in a few weeks, so you know there's interest out there. And yeah, I don't know, Caroline, do you want to say anything?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for all that you do. And yeah, we're excited to keep folding in and building together. Yeah, there's a lot of excitement for this work right now too. So we want to build with that momentum, like anti-capitalism for artists and also for architects now. There's all these study groups.
Thank you so much. And I'm wondering if folks can help capture some of the chat into the notes so that we don't lose it. And yeah, we're going to, I think we're ready to move on to internal USSEN reports.
Thank you for having us. Thanks for all that you do.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So yeah, I guess I'm the only one for the first order of business, the board orientation. Emily already put a note in though. We're looking for a time next week. So yeah, a board orientation could be a good thing. We should have one, and hopefully soon we will. Check.
Is anybody reporting on grounded solutions?